joining us today is our friend Kevin McGary. And let me tell you, Kevin, I am excited to continue this conversation. We started this conversation over at the radio. So if you haven't gone and listened to that at Wokepedia Radio, you need to go ahead and do that. If you tried to skip ahead to the podcast thinking, man, the podcast is so much better than the radio show, I don't know, maybe that's your thought, but you need to go back and listen to the radio show because we're actually continuing the conversation from there. But we do have joining us Kevin McGary from EveryBlackLifeMatters.com. The organization is Every Black Life Matters, but you can go to everyblm.com and find his website. And of course, you just finished writing this new book, Woked Up. And as we've been talking about this, we've been going through this, we looked at how there's really a foundation in wokeism rooted in Charles Darwin and the eugenics that he brings in, even the misogyny and sexism that he brings in, how he is a white supremacist, how he's doing all these horrible things. And of course, Charles Darwin then has a huge impact on a man that you may have heard of, Karl Marx. And we're just going to pick up here, Kevin, with where Karl Marx said what his life goal is. And what did Karl Marx say his life goal is?
So Karl Marx was, he said, look, he says, I don't really care about my social and political and economic philosophies, socialism, Marxism, communism. He said, my main goal in life is to dethrone God. He said, I hate God. And what I want people to picture is a guy who his Engels described him, Friedrich Engels, his compatriot, his main guy, described him as having being possessed by 10,000 demons. This guy was wretched. He didn't have a simple, calm existence any time in his life, pretty much, other than he was young. When he was young, he was actually born into an Anglican family. It was a Protestant family, excuse me, and he was born into that, and he was actually a good Christian, and he wrote very profound insights on God and all that stuff until he went to college. Isn't that interesting?
Even
college
back then
was turning people out back then, just like it turns out our kids and grandkids today. College. So when he went to college, one of his professors challenged him and said, look, you should read Genesis again. Read it and it won't make sense to you. Well, Marx read it and he says, you're right. And he started to become an atheist. And then he was introduced to Darwin and Darwin's work. And that just completely changed his world. And then from there on, he says, look, religion is an opiate of the masses. There is no God. My number one goal is to dethrone God and to have, ideally my communist utopia to be the religion, the real religion, because of course there is no God. So this was his philosophy. Now, when you consider that James Cone, who started Black liberation theology, and all of the Southern Marxists, South American Marxists who started liberation theology generally, that they're tied to Marx and they're bringing in the precious word of God and they're melding it. It's syncretic. It's syncretized, basically. And then they're spewing this out as the gospel message for the day. Right. These woke pastors, they should be not only repenting, they should be absolutely ashamed of themselves, because what they're doing is they're taking the ideas from this guy was the closest person I've ever read about, in my mind, that was the closest person that I ever lived to being a demon in the flesh. His body was covered with boils for 25 years, never worked a day in his life. He pioneered sex slavery. He had a woman, a live-in maid, living with him and his family, slaving over them, never paid her a dime, not a plug nickel. And he used her for sex. Ultimately, he had a son born out of that. And so he was just there was not anything good that I could see that's come from Marx. And so when people revere Marx and, and give him all these accolades. I'm thinking, are you really? Are you guys crazy? What? This guy was just the worst miscreant you could imagine. Unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when looking at Marx, he even portrayed himself in his before he became, an economist or an aspiring philosophical economist or whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not economy and it's barely philosophy. But Marx wanted to be a writer. He wanted to be a poet. And he actually portrayed himself a couple different times. One of them is in The Player. But he portrayed himself as demon possessed, as a man who would go and would play so furiously that it would go and destroy himself. And he viewed himself that way. So, I mean, when people start to look at this, that they can see where there's a connection between woke ideology, I think, and Marxism, because a lot of them are going out and saying that they're Marxist or at least socialist, and socialism, of course, is tied to Marxism. But where people tend to get the issue is when you try to go and to connect Marxism to the church and to theology today, like you have here with James Cone and woke preachers today. I mean, there's all kinds of them that are out here quoting Cone, and Cone, of course, is one of his big guys is Marx. They don't understand how this is connected to theology, and this is why I love when it's brought up that Karl Marx's goal in life was to dethrone God. I don't love that his goal was to dethrone God, but they have to understand he actually was a theological thinker trying to not only simply destroy capitalism, but he actually wanted to dethrone God because he realized in order to destroy capitalism, you had to dethrone God. He was a man who hated authority. And so I think this is awesome that you bring this out in your book. I've got one more question here, and then I'm going to let Kyle jump in because he's probably chomping at the bit to ask some questions. You mentioned the phrase social Darwinism. Yes. Social Darwinism. How does can you explain what social Darwinism is?
Yeah, social Darwinism is the expression of Darwinistic theories. So I would say that when we infuse Darwin's evolutionary theories and his theories about all of these theories into our academics, that's to a degree that's social Darwinism, but it's the practice of Darwinistic ideas in the marketplace, if you will. So for all of those people, I would say those white supremacist groups, they all read Darwin. So a lot of people think that white supremacy is always on the right. It's coming from the conservative. No. Not really. Not actuality. In actuality, no. It is that white supremacist, those white supremacist groups, those white nationalist groups, those real ones, not the ones that the ad hominems that we all get, but those real groups. They look at Darwin and they look at they're anti-Semites because Darwin, of course, believed that Jews could be summarily exterminated, and that's what happened with Hitler. And they look at other ethnicities like you're less than it's fine. You don't really need. We don't have to honor you because you're not equivalent. We're Aryans. We're the top. And that's social Darwinism. That's sort of carried out in that way. But in actuality, what you see additional is sort of cultural Marxism. So I think social Darwinism and cultural Marxism are really, really close bedfellows because cultural Marxism is more of the Marxism that we see in every phase and every aspect of living today. And the Darwinism that impacted that Marxism is, of course, infused in what we see, but it's not explicitly Darwinistic. It is more of Marx and his ideologies that are carried forth from that root of Darwinism. I don't know if that makes sense, but anyway, that's how I see the distinction. Both are very, very powerful cultural elements that we're fighting against, and they're both demonic in nature.
Absolutely. No, I think that's good to point out. And and important to understand both how social Darwinism is working in our culture and how cultural Marxism is working in our culture, because people don't understand these things because they think one of the big things that when it comes to Marxism is that people go and say, well, look, it was just an economic theory. It's just the oppressor versus the oppressed, the bourgeois versus the proletariat. But it's been applied through Gramsci and others to our cultural context, and that's what we see. Everybody is doing that. All the critical theories, critical race theory, whatever other theory, all of those are cultural Marxism, and it's just applying what Marx taught in economics to other areas. But Kyle, do you got a question or two?
Well, let me just finish that thought, because what Marx said in his work was, look, you must critically assess. Now, those are two key words. Every area and domain of society, and completely turn it upside down. So when we see it, because it looks crazy to us, like, why would teachers really enjoy and appreciate teaching children 3, 5, 7 years old that they can be a different gender when they know better? Biologically, they know better. But for a parent from the outside looking in, it's like, why would they even be having this conversation? Why are they trying to turn the entire distinction of biological reality into this sort of nebulous gender bending kind of reality? Why are they doing that? Why are they attacking the definition of family? Why are they attacking the definition of women? Why are they attacking? Every area of our life is literally being turned upside down. And that's exactly what Marx said. As for Marxist revolutionaries, you must go out and do that. So what I do is I connect the dots with everybody that's participating as a wokester today. You may not even know it, but you are a Marxist revolutionary. You're carrying out Marxist work. You're doing exactly what he admonished you to do. Go out and every single hegemonic reality, every single system that's based principally on tradition and all that, completely eviscerated, turn it upside down. And then we could see ultimately our communist utopia. This is Marx's idea.
These guys are insane. They have, and that's one of the things that people, and I love that you've been bringing this up over and over. These were not isolated theories. Darwin was not just putting out an isolated theory and then it did its thing. Marx was not just putting out a theory and it did its thing. They had end goals. They had things that they wanted to achieve. Now, Marx had a different way in which he thought it was going to be achieved. And so cultural Marxism is the adaptation of his theories as they've failed in one aspect to a new aspect. Same goals we're trying to achieve. But I want to connect a few dots for people that are listening, because we've been dancing around some of these ideas. But would it be fair to say that just as cultural Marxism is a continuation of Marx's original theories and ideas, is it fair to say that Marxism itself is an evolution of Darwinist thought?
Yes, it is.
As opposed to simply just something developed alongside that is a direct result of.
No, so when Marx started, he started his first, when he first came out the gate with his theories, he started to put pen and paper and he took a look at some prior theories from Plato and Thomas More, Thomas Hobbes, and some of these other guys. And then he sort of refined that thinking. These were all, sort of master. These were all these utopian, dystopic type ideas that where the state is sort of the God, right? And so he refined. He took a look at that and refined it. But he gave all of his original works, all of his first works, complete credence to Darwin for all of it. He dedicated to Darwin because Darwin had such a profound impact on he and Engels. And so, it's not disconnected. I mean, really what Darwin did is really brought to life these things that Marx was feeling inside about, I really feel I'm second guessing the whole God thing and the Bible thing. And then what what Darwin exposed about, evolution, there is no God and this whole thing. He took all of those things. And then, of course, Darwin's work around, imperialism and race extermination and all of these things, and how races are subhuman or subpar compared to Aryans and those types of things. All of those things are infused in Marxist thoughts. And so when you take a look at Marx and his works, it is absolutely infused with Darwinistic thoughts. He took basically Darwin as his sort of principles of Darwin and Darwinism, and then really put the pedal to the metal, like I said, and sort of came up with his own economic philosophies surrounding these, what he thought were realities that Darwin presented. And that's what we're left with today. And then, of course, another modern day guy who took then Marx's works in our modern day would be Saul Alinsky, right? Who dedicated all his works to Lucifer. And so we see demonism, Satanism, just wretched, gross ideas about humanity infused in all of these works. Darwin, Marx, Engels, Saul Alinsky, all of the despots in history, everything that these types of philosophies have touched has left nothing but death and destruction. Over 120 million innocents died because of these philosophies. When you combine abortion on top of it worldwide, it's over 1.5 billion people innocent,
right, that
have died because of these arcane, nonsensical. And this is what I want everybody to understand. This is not science. There's no justification for eugenics. None, other than white supremacy.
Yep.
So you abortionists that say, well, a woman's right. Excuse me. You're just, okay. If you want to own that you're a white supremacist and you're a racist because you want to hold to this, abortion, then great, own it. But just own it. Don't deflect and don't project. You are a white supremacist and racist if you believe in abortion, because that's what it's based in. I'm sorry. That's the reality. There's no other way around it. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not trying to be ad hominem or be disrespectful to people. I want people to wake up.
Yeah, you're taking it to its logical conclusions, or almost the reverse. You're taking it back to its origins.
That's where it came from.
We're now in the conclusion phase. You're taking it back to its origin. And that's really what I wanted to draw out for people is it's not this like disconnected people developing their own theories that are only tangentially related. No, this is a direct, straight line back through to Marx and through to Darwin.
Yes,
that's right.
You do not get here without going, again, directly straight through their thought.
Yes.
And this is excellent stuff that we got going here. But Kevin, I do feel like we need to cover one more topic, and I think it is an important one, and that is, what can we do to wake people up?
Please. So what I encourage everybody to do, I get where you're going. Where I encourage everybody to start with the book. Please. Well, I mean, and this book is not, Kevin's just a old conservative guy and he just wants to. No, I'm not trying to push. It's not politically aligned. It is really dealing with the cultural issues that we're dealing with around wokeism. So it's not like you have to be a right winger or a left winger. Everybody should be able to read this book. Anybody, because it's not pointing you to a political party. It's not that. But it's all footnoted. And so I'm looking at private letters, looking at actual books that they've written, actual quotes, everything is footnoted. So for you to get, start to awaken about where this stuff comes from, and then have the capacity now to point your kids, your grandkids, your loved ones, and community members to, hey, this is what he said. This is actually where it's written, chapter and verse. This is exactly how it came out. When we go to our school boards, and we say, look, if I were to call everybody up in here, or if I were to call everybody that steps in through here that's a different ethnicity, gorilla, subhuman, those types of things, you guys would set on me and throw me out of here and make sure that you castigate me. I wouldn't even be a part of this community anymore. And you would have every right to do that because that would be hateful and racist and all that. Now, how is it then that we're teaching our children this stuff? And, and you can just leave it like that. Then they'll say, well, why do you talk? Then you say, oh, okay, here, I'm glad you asked. Because actually, I'm looking at the words from a guy that you have infused throughout our curriculum. And what he says in this book and this verse and this chapter and this page is, blacks, they're subhuman. They're gorillas. They're apes. They're savages. And here it is. And then you can give them copies, the entire school board. You give them copies of what was said and the actual, footnote. You can give them copies, and if I came in here and I said, all women in here are they need to be relegated to the kitchen. You guys would throw me out as a school board. Well, guess what? You're teaching this. So these are the types of things I hope will come out of it, is that we will have an empowered parent class that will understand what's impacting us in such a negative way, impacting our children in such a negative way that it's destroying our families. But we actually have the facts on our side.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's what I want to, that's the number one thing is after we understand this stuff, then we can be empowered to go forward and actually create all kinds of effective actions to bring this stuff to a head and finally end it. Yeah.
Wow. So as we kind of come to a close, I have a question for you.
Yes.
And kind of bringing it back around, uses a sneaky way to remind everyone to go to everyblm.com or .org?
It's .com.
.com. Everyblm.com. Contrasting you and BLM, would it be fair to say it like this? They claim a lot of things, but their claims are just that. They're claims. They're virtue signaling. They claim to be about community. They claim to be about ending racism, but they do the exact opposite. You are actually showing where racism exists.
Yes.
You're actually supporting community. They're virtue signaling, whereas you're signaling for virtues. Would that be a fair way to put it?
Way to put it.
I like that.
And the other thing is that there's so many open investigations now in BLM because they've been buying mansions and all this other kind of stuff. They had almost over $1 billion committed to them, and nobody could understand what happened with the money. I mean, a lot of it was given to Act Blue. They were really a political agency for the Democrat Party, which they're C3, so they should actually be in jail for that. I mean, you can't, as a C3, you can't participate politically. But anyway, that notwithstanding, they're under investigation in a lot of different states. So there's a huge fraud element. There's a huge malfeasance element. We are, I'm an IT guy, so this stuff I do because I have a passion for it, but this is not my, I don't have no reason to try to siphon out money. We're going out and doing the work, and we're trying to empower community so we get beyond this phase in our history and actually unify around the truth.
Amen. So. Amen. Well, everyone needs to go and check out everyblm.com. Once again, it's everyblm.com. And of course, get yourself a copy of that book, Woked Up. That is important to go and to do. It's going to be an important tool going forward to go and to fight the woke, to go into standing for truth. And thank you so much for taking the stand that you're taking, Kevin. And thank you so much for coming on today. Don't forget, go and subscribe to the YouTube channels. Y'all Woked Up right there. Y'all Woked
Up University.
And also, you can go to every BLM, Black Life Matters on YouTube as well. Check that out. Subscribe there. This is great stuff. We're excited to have you back. We need to go and to do a deep dive into critical race theory and also liberation theology. I know you've done a lot of stuff on that, so we definitely need to have you back on. But thank you so much for coming on. And anything you want to tell our listeners before you go?
Please pray for America. Please pray for every BLM, for our organization. And if you can, come alongside of us, support us. We have partner programs and all kinds of stuff where you get exclusive content and you get the ability to continue to interact with us on all these different platforms. So please just join us, join the fight. I mean, we're in this together, so let's do it together.
Awesome. Amen. Well, thank you so much for coming on with us.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for listening today to Wokepedia Podcast. Remember, you can go and find us at enemieswithinthechurch.com. Once again, it's enemieswithinthechurch.com. You can find out all of our stuff, and you need to email us. Let us know what you think of our content. Email us at contactwokepedia@gmail.com. And, of course, if you're interested in sponsoring a show or just any business inquiries, where can they email, Kyle?
They can email us at wokepediamedia@gmail.com. Again, wokepediamedia@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Click subscribe where you need to subscribe and give us 5-star reviews because we don't take 4. Thank you. Have a great day and don't go woke.